So today we're going to be looking at writing up the procedure for testing our votes. And what we are doing today will also help you fill out your Journal 5 entry. So this is the PowerPoint, and Tessa posted this, so you all have access to this as well. So you all have done quite a bit of work with your engineering design so far. We've defined our problem, done research, brainstormed on ideas, listed requirements and limitations, determined our variables, what's going to be the independent variable, what's the dependent variable, determined our expectations, coming up with our hypothesis, and designing our goals. So made quite a bit of headway here in terms of the project. So what we're going to do today is come up with a plan on how we are testing the votes. And you'll have a set of steps that will get you through the whole testing process. Now, here's an example of two recipes, two sets of steps to walk someone who has never made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before. And we have these two different versions side by side. The first recipe, step 1, put peanut butter on bread. Step 2, put jelly on bread. Step 3, eat. Now let's look at the second recipe. Step 1, place 2 slices of bread on plates. Step 2, open the jar of peanut butter and use a butter knife to spread 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on 1 slice of bread. Step 3, open the jar of jelly and use a butter knife to spread 2 tablespoons of jelly on the other slice of bread. Step 4, put the 2 slices together with the peanut butter and jelly in the middle. Step 5, eat. What do you all think about these two different recipes?
The second one, give more details, like step up, step. Although the first one, just, it is 3 things, that's what you're gonna do. First is, we put the butter, it's not like, you need to bring a plate, you need a knife.
Right.
The second one, you give more details.
More detail, good. Any thoughts from you, Max?
I would say the same thing. Second one is details.
Now, the first one, like you both said, not a lot of detail. And we can see this picture here of the finished product. Put peanut butter on bread. Put jelly on bread. Eat. Would you really eat that? Yeah, I wouldn't follow step 3 for that. Not a lot of detail. For someone who has never made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they don't understand. You need to open the jar. You need to actually take the peanut butter and jelly out. That if you have a big loaf of bread like this is not what you want from the sandwich. So it's making a lot of assumptions that the person who's making the sandwich knows what to do. The instructions are not very clear for someone who has never done this before. So it doesn't highlight enough of the steps here for someone to be able to make an actual sandwich. Okay, so when we look at the wording in the first recipe, the one that's in red, the person, whoever made the sandwich, did follow the steps. I mean, the peanut butter is on the bread, the jelly is on the bread, but that's not actually what we wanted to get across the person making the sandwich. We look at the recipe in green. It tells you how to use the different materials or ingredients. lots of detail, so there's no confusion about what to do. So we want to pay attention to wording, pay attention to detail. And remember, when we're writing our procedure, we're writing it for other people, not just for ourselves, but for others to be able to follow the steps to come up with the exact same results you did. So when you're thinking about your steps in your mind, you might already know that this is what you want to do. So, but you want to make sure you're putting that down. You want to make sure you're including that in your set of steps. So you don't want to assume that the person reading it can read what's in your mind as well. Okay, so an engineering or experimental plan needs details and specific statements. Assume the reader does not know what you did and has never built anything. How would they be able to follow your plan to copy your experiment? When you create your plan for how you will test your boats, include details of how you handled the boat, if I turned the boat this way, what you did for the test, where you did the tests, and how long you did the tests, and so on. Just really want to document everything that you're doing. And this plan is frequently called a procedure for your methods. Now, we're going to do a little practice here. I want you all to come up with a set of steps on how I would put on a shirt or a hoodie, okay? So that's what I want the two of you to do. Take some time now, write out the steps. I do have a sweatshirt here in my bag. So after you all written out your directions, I'm going to follow each step. We're going to see how close I get to getting this on properly.
Oh, to wear it?
Yes, I have this in my hands. I want it on. You all tell me how I'm going to get this on. And assume I don't know anything about this.
First of all, you take the shirt.
Oh, write it down. You have time. Yeah.
Oh,
write
we
it
have
down.
to.
Yeah.
So the next slide, I have a set of directions that Tessa gave. Find the shirt you want to wear. It's along the same lines that you said to go to the dresser. Hold the bottom of the shirt where there is only one big hole in both hands, making sure the front of the shirt faces your legs. Okay, that's very specific. I could put it this way, backwards, and I'll have it backwards. The front is the side without the neck tag. Very specific. Open the bottom of the shirt and put your right arm through until it reaches and enters the right sleeve of the shirt. Keep your right arm through the right sleeve, resting the right side of the shirt on your right shoulder. Put your left arm through the bottom of the shirt until it reaches through the left sleeve. Now with your arms that are through the sleeves of your shirt, lift the bottom of the shirt so that there is an opening to the inside of the shirt. This is the bottom, I'm opening it.
You don't have to mess up your head.
Your head, I'm all in at this point, Max. Put your head through until your head passes through the shirt. But I think I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
You know, it's why it's working. Pull the shirt. Okay. That was very specific.
Yeah, it's like even if you never put a shirt before, then
Right.
you can do it.
Like, I didn't really put a shirt on this, I just grabbed the neck.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. But even though I don't put it on this way regularly, I'm able to follow the steps there. All right, so you see the difference there? So you want to think about the wording and think about if the reader has never done this before. Okay, so you want to make sure that they understand the different parts that you're talking about. Words count. So you want to make sure you're using action words so that the reader knows what they're doing. Use words that show position: above, below, inside, outside, next to, or beside, etc. Don't make it too complicated or try to make it sound nice. Just make the instructions clear and simple. All right, so we're going to try this again. Now I want you all to write a procedure: how to make a cup of tea or coffee the way you like it. Remember to use action words and use ways to describe location.
Put it in that bowl, you add sugar and milk. And after you how you say that when you
Stir.
and then yeah, then you stir it. That's how I make it.
Any comments there? Christine?
Basically, I did the same things: boiling water, drop the coffee, put it in the boiling water, like 1 spoon or two spoons of coffee. After leave it to boil for a few minutes, and take it out, put it in the mat. That's all I did. All the style.
Now, have you all ever turned on the kettle and then realized you didn't have water in it?
Oh yeah. Some kind
So you did say turn on the kettle, but I was thinking.
Yeah,
the water in it.
You're right. You're right. That's the joke now, because imagine if it was empty, then you just tell me.
Right, I've done that, and then I'm like, what's that burning smell? Stick it up. Okay, so that was just another exercise for us to get in the habit of the practice of putting in lots of detail. So I would say kind of like imagine yourself doing it, and everything you do, because it's so routine, maybe when you're making your own coffee, when you're putting on your own.
Think about the
phone.
steps.
Right.
Do what you do every day.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to get into what you'll need for your Journal 5 entry. Now, to build your procedure, you all have already worked on your hypothesis and your research question. Both of those statements focus what you should be testing on your test today. For example, if your research question is, how does boat density affect if the boat sinks or floats when it carries weight? And the hypothesis is, if boat density affects whether the boat will sink or not, then it is thought that the denser boats will sink with added weight because the buoyant force will become weaker against the overall weight of the dense boat. Now, here's another wording for building your procedure now, using your research question and your hypothesis. The test should include steps where my two different boats get tested with added weight while in the water. And I have the opportunity to observe if they float while holding that weight. The goal is to build a procedure and test that gives you an answer for your research question and gives you an opportunity if your hypothesis is supported by the results or not. So if you know what your research question is, that's what you want to build your test around. That's what you want to make sure that you're actually performing steps to see if your hypothesis is correct or not. Now, all experiments will include 3 trials because you'll be testing out each boat the same way 3 times. And since you all have 2 boats, it's going to be 3 trials for each boat. That will bring you to a total of 6 trials. You will record the results for each of those trials in your journal 6. And we'll be looking at journal 6 next week. Make sure that you're taking pictures of the process. Okay? Don't worry about taking too many. Take as many as you can, and then you'll have a lot to choose from. Pictures that you can include, and then they will also help you realize what your steps are.
That means we're gonna do this trials at home.
So everyone will do their trials here.
Before you do the trial, you have to build the boat, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll have time today to work on building the boats.
What about if you don't have the old material that you need to build it?
Oh, if you don't have materials?
Oh, yeah.
I did my, make one.
You already make yours?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm trying to do it fast as I can.
So you
Because I'm
know,
not gonna be able to, to attend the class the last week on June. I have applied to catch. That's what I'm trying to do now, as much as I can here.
If there are materials that you need, Max, let me know.
I didn't use that much, it was just cardboard. Here. Yes.
Cardboard, oil.
This is the first one, and this is the second one.
Oh, nice.
That's all I did. I'm waiting for the test. Hopefully it works.
you know what? Yeah. So,
Hopefully.
what is the same design that I have? I have one of them.
Yeah, that's
You have the
what
one like that?
Yeah, one.
What
boats
is
are
your,
boats.
yeah, what is your? We just, share the journals and the trials.
Yeah, we'll do the trials here. We have like some big containers that will fill up with water. It'll be fun. We'll all watch. Keep our fingers crossed. for
Yeah, I
the
have some fun, but I don't know. If it's going to be enough.
Just, like I said, cardboard, like your blue tinfoil or plastic wrap.
Right, to try to waterproof.
Yeah.
So,
If my kids didn't fun with me, but I tried to do my best.
I think you both look good.
yeah, do me that, yeah.
Follow me, oh, that's not the way you should do it. I said, oh, when I get it done.
So now you have something you can give them to do during the summer since they're.
Oh, God. Just 1, 2, 3.
Oh.
When you wanna do their experiment by themselves.
Oh, and then now we on journal 4? No,
Yeah.
5, yeah, journal 5. So here, he's just showing you that for each trial, it's taking pictures, okay? Try to document it as much as you can. What you do to one boat in 3 trials will be the exact same way you test the second boat in its 3 trials. because you're trying to have your independent and dependent variables. That's the only thing we want to change. You're talking about the differences in size of the boats, different designs. That's the only thing you want to change. You want your steps when you're testing the boats to be exactly the same. So there aren't any other kind of influences on your outcome.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's what I try to make sure that it's only the shape that is changed, but it's the
Right.
same length and the same height. It's the shape.
So again, sure you know to document pictures.
So those pictures, is that while you're building the boat? Oh.
So that's when you try it.
When it's testing the boat. You see the
Ah,
boat is
okay,
in-
okay, oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
in
Yeah, you're
water
right,
there.
you're right.
Now the timing in each trial. Want to keep in mind how long you will wait until you start the next trial. So you put your boat in the water, have a set amount of time where the boat will be in the water and you're making your observations. Okay, give yourself enough time so that something can actually happen. A general amount of time can be 30 seconds to 1 minute for each trial. Maximum 3 minutes for each trial. But just keep in mind that however long you do one trial, that's how long all your trials have to be. So remember, you're going to be doing a total of 6 trials. So you don't want them to be too long. So that will be quite a bit of time where you're standing there waiting for something to happen. Again, just making sure you understand that you want to be making your observations and taking pictures during each trial. Testing for floating with weight. The first trial will not include added weight. So just give both added weight. The second trial will include a certain amount of weight you have chosen ahead of time. So for the second trial for your first boat, the same weight you will use for your second trial. The third trial will include a certain higher amount of weight you have chosen ahead of time. Again, you want to keep the weights the same from one boat to the other. So the first trial, while we're doing it without weights, just so we can see if the boat is floating without anything. Because if your boat with no weight is already sinking, then you know that for trials 2 and 3, it wasn't the added weight that caused it to sink. It was just
Yeah.
not seaworthy from the beginning. Then the second trial will help you understand if your boat is floating with a little bit of added weight. And the third trial helps you know if your boat floats with some more added weight. So this is how you will be reporting your results. And these are the tables that will be in your journal 6. And this table is included here in this PowerPoint for journal 5, just so you have an understanding of what it is you're looking for. This will help you with when you're writing your procedure. Okay. So you won't have this until journal 6, but it's helpful to see what it is you'll be working with. So you have your different trials, and then you have spaces there to make your observations about what happened at each trial. So here for trial 1, we know there will not be any weight added.
Yeah.
How will we measure how successful the boat is at carrying weight? We will measure how much water climbs up the side of the boat. So the column here, so go back to this table, the last column, how much did it go into the water? We'll be measuring the side of the boat to see how deep it went into the water.
That is after you put the boat to the water. You can see how much water is the waves up or
Right.
before.
So when you put the boat in the water,
Yeah.
you'll see, once you start adding weight,
Yeah.
you'll see how much water is coming up the side of the boat there. And then you'll be able to tell how deep it went in. So maybe a good idea when you do your first trial, and it's just your empty boats in the water, is maybe make a mark there, a beginning mark, to see where the water level is there, and as you add weight, you'll see that brings it up.
That means we need a bucket to have the, like the measurements outside. Or not.
That would be good, yeah, but the buckets don't have the measurements. on the
Oh, yeah, that
outside.
one.
Yeah. But you will be, you could mark your boats.
Yeah, but you can use also the, like, of the ruler.
The ruler here, you can place the ruler in the water. Let's see. It's a good idea. Okay, so on actual boats, are measurements along the side. So you can see how deep the boat is in the water. So this is a picture of an actual boat, the side of a boat. You can see here the measurements here. And the measurements here are in meters. Now, we will not have water that's meters deep. So we'll be measuring in inches or centimeters. We have a smaller amount of water, so we'll be using smaller units of measurement. You will mark on the side of your boats before putting it into the water, the different lines of measurements. So here's an option. And that way you can see how much water has come up versus when it's on top of the water. That might be difficult depending on what material you're using to waterproof your boat.
Yeah.
So I like your idea about using the ruler. to see the difference. After you build your boat, make sure to draw the marks on the side. You need your ruler to help you make the marks. Make sure you can see the marks after you draw them. Now, this is if it's possible to do this.
So explain that part again, you said.
So here, you know how we saw on the actual boats, how there are measurements here? So when you build your boat, you could also put these kind of measurements on it,
Oh,
but that depends on your material.
actually, yeah, what color?
And it might be hard to do once your boat, if your boat's already built, to try to draw your line on it.
Wait a minute, you said make sure you can see the marks after you draw them. You draw the mark, oh,
Yes, so you see here, this is an example.
oh, yeah, 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 I was thinking about drawing the itself,
Oh, on the actual.
yeah, yeah, on the actual.
Now, journal 5 is where you're going to write up the methods or process you use for each of your trials. You will want to think of where you want to do your testing. So we're going to be testing in these ends here. And there are different ones here. I think the clear ones are really good because with your boat is in, you'll be able to just see here on the side, rather than trying to see from the top. It's hard to understand what's going on with the boat. So we'll be using these kinds of tubs. What you will use as your weight. You could add coins, you could add marbles, there are dried beans that we have available, popcorn kernels, dried rice, etc. All those options for how you are adding weight. And if you notice that these examples are not huge things, and things you don't mind, they happen to be there. Just with your votes, you put in something that's going to definitely, it's not really going to help your data there. Things like that. Think of what you set, think of the amount of weight you want to use before each trial. So we do have like a gram scale as well. So you can think about how many grams, or you can just count on like how many points you're going to be adding to your vote. You can count the number of points or marbles. You can measure in cups or spoons the kernels, beans, or rice. And like I said, also use gram scales. So these are what you want to think about before you do your trial. This information you want to be included in your procedure. And this is an example of a Journal 5 that's completed. So you all have the Journal 5 already posted up on the Google Classroom. Maybe you all have seen already, there are spaces there for you to fill in your information. So this is the filled out Journal 5 for a student who has completed this some time ago. And this is the blank Journal 5 that you all will be working on. Okay, so you see the blanks there, that's where you'll fill in your information. And once you fill in your information, it will resemble the Journal 5 entry. First. So I'm going to go back to the example Journal 5, and you can think of how you could incorporate some of that into your own journal. Okay. Now it's for a different type of testing. This is when the project was for building wind turbines, I believe. You all are doing boats. So it's different type of project, but you can still get an idea about the written process that's included in your Journal 5, okay? So again, we go back and we start talking about the different variables, independent variable, your dependent variable. What you didn't change from one vote to the other. And then you include your research question, which you can just go back to your Journal 3 entry. Here. Okay. And then there are some design questions at the bottom, the last 5 questions. So all that will be included in your Journal 5. Okay. Okay, so for your Journal 5, you should include detailed steps of how you will test each vote. And remember to look at the different examples, peanut butter and jelly, putting on a sweatshirt, making your cup of coffee. Want to think about your wording, make sure you're using specific action words, talk about location, and just really remember that you are writing these detailed steps out for someone who has not seen you go through the process, and that this person will be able to replicate what you're doing. And you also want to think about what each trial will look like. Each boat has a minimum of 3 trials each. Remember, what you do to one boat has to be done exactly the same to the other boats. Whatever differences you see between your 2 models, you don't want those differences to be because you use different steps for the trial. You use a different procedure for the trials. So we've seen the blank template on Google Classroom. And you want to make sure that you have that procedure done. And then I've taken a look at it before we start our testing. Okay. So this is an example of how you are filling in the blanks there on the Journal 5 template. So this is what you will see on the template for trial 1. Just blank there, wait for blank minutes for seconds. This is how it's filled in for trial 1. This is where you put in the procedure, what you will be doing for trial 1, and then your time that you've decided the trial class. Now this one here says wait for 15 seconds, but I think in one of the previous slides says minimum of 30. Okay.
So the Journal 5 is actually after you build the board and then you test it.
Well, your Journal 5, you don't have to have your boat built
Yeah.
for Journal 5. So for Journal 5, you really just want to think about the procedures for your trials.
Oh,
So you don't have to have the boat built for that yet. You want to make sure that we have the procedure before we are ready to test
it
it.
seems to me I need access to the video, my Journal 5.
Oh, yeah. I don't have access to Journal 5 either. So ask the owner.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll send it
okay.
to you. Because I cannot take you.
All right. So I'll take a look at that. All right. So take a look at that now.